September 4th, Village Board regular meeting. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, the Republic, which stands one nation, God, oh.
Trustee Quesada,
Present.
Trustee Herrera,
Present.
Trustee Bazemore, Trustee Levin,
Present.
and Mayor Garrity.
Present.
On to mayor's and trustees' announcements.
Does anybody have anything to announce? I believe that Deputy Mayor Bevan has some updates for us.
Hi, a couple of things. Good evening. First, just want to remind everybody, school's back. Everybody's starting, and I know the police are out there monitoring the traffic, but please be careful with all the kids that are getting on and off buses. We're sort of back on track. And I do know, and I don't know if the chief is discussing it, I'm also going to ask, I've been following a little bit on social media and the buzz around town that some of the taxi drivers need to be reminded that they too need to be a lot more careful driving around this village, stop signs, etc., especially with so many kids getting on and off the school buses. So keep that in mind. I also, the EAC met last night, the Environmental Advisory Council, and thank you, Stuart, for always preparing all of the material and for being so patient and kind and informing the committee and answering lots of questions. We saw a presentation from Jerry Fael for the Sing Sing Museum, which was really interesting. The group is interested in going to actually visit the Sing Sing actual jail and to take a tour of that, which they were very excited about. I just wanted to say that we're looking for 2 more positions. Is that right, Stuart? 2 more alternate. It's the alternate positions. 1 member. I want to tell the public, and I quote, this is a very fun committee. Everybody agreed on that. It's really the environmental group actually has taken a wonderful position in recommending how to, for developers and for people that come in front of them on how to incorporate thoughtful environmental management as part of building, construction, maintenance, etc. And it's a really interesting group. If anybody would like more information, please contact me or contact the village manager's office or apply for a position. Happy to talk about it. They are going to do an update if people are tuning in towards the end of the year. I think it's going to be somewhere around November. They're going to come up in front of the board, and I don't want to steal that. I think we said November because it's about a year, October or November. They're going to do, which this board does, is do an update really to the public of what they've worked on, what they're interested in. They may ask the board for some things to look. They're looking at green space analysis for the village, exciting stuff. So that's sort of my update on that committee. I also sit as a liaison for the rec community and recreation, but they have not met recently. They take off a little bit for the summer, so I'll report on that after our first meeting to the public to let you know what they're looking to do as far as the community center. That's for me.
Thank you for giving us an update. We used to do regular liaison report updates, so I'm glad that we were moved to share tonight, and we'll try and incorporate that on a more regular basis, and this is a good time at the beginning of legislative sessions to do that update. Anyone else with announcements?
Yes.
Please.
Good evening. So I will actually start off with the only liaison role that I have, which is the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce, and I spoke to Gail Marchica earlier today, the president, and I am pleased to say that their first collaboration with the town of Ossining was a success, and their food truck Fridays were a hit. Between the music, the record attendance at all of them, and trying out, really incorporating how, beer and wine and food can make the overall experience at the local level even better. So I want to congratulate the town of Ossining and the Ossining Chamber of Commerce for a good, inaugural year for that program. And what I was told to look forward to is their 75th anniversary year, which is coming up this year, and we'll learn what that means and all the fun stuff that they plan on doing soon. So I look forward to that. Um, as I've been doing since this passed in Albany, the Did You Know Tenant Tuesdays, which in our case is our Tenant Wednesdays. I read a fact about how the law has changed here in Ossining, Westchester, New York, and I pick a particular change that is applicable to Ossining and above, and I'll read what this week's is. In eviction court, documents are served 1 to 17 days before court, and an adjournment must be granted if there is a cause related to the facts of the case, and it could be no less than 14 days. So I have a full list of these. The state also published one, so it's pretty helpful to know what can no longer be done in our community and in the county, and also how to enforce it, and also if you're a landlord who wants to comply with the new laws and regs or may not understand them, I'd be more than happy to speak to you and point you in the right direction. Next announcement, tomorrow, the New York Immigration Coalition Westchester chapter is having a pretty special event under unfortunate circumstances. There's going to be a public charge town hall meeting, and that's tomorrow, Thursday, September 5th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. It's going to be held at the Greenberg Public Library. It's a county-wide meeting. They're actually expecting quite an amount of officials and advocates and houses of worship, and of course a lot of residents. It's regarding the administration's new rule, which is expected to affect more than 26 million people across the U.S. And it's going to feature the Commissioner of Social Services. This has the potential to create a social service crisis in the county. So it's a pretty important meeting tomorrow. They're having a liaison from Catholic Charities, Neighbors Link, HRC and Peekskill, and many other legal nonprofits per se that will hopefully kind of give us an idea as to what do we do when this goes into effect, how the county should react, how the local government, if any reaction from us, what can we do? So that's tomorrow, 3 to 5 p.m. at the Greenberg Public Library. And lastly, Community Voices Heard is doing a statewide survey called Follow Black Women. If you've read the New York Times or you follow U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, they recently held a roundtable about this survey in Midtown Manhattan, and it's the first survey ever in New York State to gather the input and opinion about what Black women in New York want, need, and what their role is going to be in elections going forward, but mainly in 2020 presidential election. You could take the online survey at followblackwomen.org. And I think I'm going to get some copies for anyone who doesn't have a computer or prefers to do it. It's probably going to be released, I'm assuming, at the end of the year. And that will be, for the first time ever, as far as advocacy groups and places of worship, will give an actual a report that's based on, the goal is 5,000 women. They really give us an idea and a breakdown as to where they're from, what they said, and how to move forward. And that is all I have. Thank you.
No, I do not. I will be prepared for my liaison next week.
Perfect, thank you. Trustee Herrera, regarding the meeting that's taking place at the Greenberg Library tomorrow, you said from 3 to 5, are you able to attend?
I am in the process of trying to get cleared to attend, but I'm pretty sure I will be.
Great, great. I'll be interested in if maybe you can give us a report after you attend. Maybe next week you can let us know how it goes. If there's any particular role that we can play as a local government.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or any update, I'd say that.
And also, the contact for this particular meeting is Vanessa Agudelo from Peekskill.
Great.
So, yeah.
We all know her.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my favorite fundraiser of the year is happening in just a couple of weeks, and you can register online right now with Ossining Matters. It's their 5K run, 2-mile walk that's happening on September 14th. If you're not familiar with Ossining Matters, maybe you're a new person in our community. They are the foundation that does fundraising for the school district to provide enrichment programs for our district that are really a benefit to all of Ossining students. And their annual 5K 2-mile race is one of their big fundraisers, and it's got a pretty accessible price point. I believe it's about $20 usually, maybe it's gone up to $25 to participate in the event, and hundreds of folks show up in downtown and go along the Aqueduct Trail. It's a really terrific community event that gets us all outside, walking and running in our community and raising money for educational programs. So that's my plug for Ossining Matters. Make sure that you you search them online and get your registration in. The other thing I wanted to tell folks about is a bit of a television programming note. I saw folks on social media were wondering last month why there were a bunch of limousines and tinted windows in the black vehicles showing up down by the waterfront by Sing Sing Prison. NBC was here. Lester Holt came and held a town hall style meeting at Sing Sing Prison. I was fortunate enough to be one of the audience members. I think we were asked to raise our hands or not once. It wasn't really a very actively involved audience. However, there were a series of participants talking about the current prison system, criminal justice reform, and it was filmed obviously right on the Sing Sing grounds outdoors they built a tent, and Lester Holt he's doing a series about prisons all next week. I think the Dateline Friday program has a focus from Lester Holt, and then the program that was filmed right here at Sing Sing will be airing next Sunday at 10 p.m. on MSNBC. So if you want to see our community and learn what is going on a little bit inside the walls of the prison, the audience did include also a number of the incarcerated individuals from Sing Sing, as well as advocates for prison reform who made up the audience. It was a really very interesting program. Loretta Lynch was also there, who had been the Attorney General for President Obama, offering some insights from a legal perspective, and folks from a lot of different organizations that work on prison reform. Really fascinating topic, and I certainly will be tuning in. It's a subject that's going to be explored further this month by both the Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series, our screening on September 19th. Actually, one of the panelists is one of the participants that Lester Holt speaks with on Sunday evening. His name is Lawrence Bartley. He's an active participant. He is formerly incarcerated himself. That's on the 19th of September. You can learn more at ossiningdocumentaries.org or go ahead and search on Facebook. I think the event page is going up tomorrow if it's not up now, but as always, it's 6:30 in the evening and it's free to the public. It's Thursday the 19th at the Ossining Public Library, and the name of the film that we're screening is Tres Maisons d'Asson. It's 3 boys' names. It's 3 children who have parents that are incarcerated. It's a documentary from their perspective. And the focus on families of incarcerated people will continue for the next few days. There's going to be a dance performance down on the waterfront. It's called The Weight Room. That's being sponsored by the Sing Sing Prison Museum. The Sing Sing Prison Museum project is also the screening sponsor for the Documentary and Discussion Series program. So you can learn about how to get tickets to one of the dance performances that Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, by going to the Sing Sing Prison Museum website. And last but not least, perhaps if you're watching News 12 today, you may have seen a segment. I didn't see if it actually aired, but our very own Chief Sylvester is being honored as one of the impressive 40 under 40 leaders in law enforcement in the country. We were very excited that the International Association of Chiefs of Police, I believe that's the formal name. I was delighted to be able to nominate him for that. He was also nominated by our district attorney here in the county, and he was selected among a really impressive group of leaders. We are really, really pleased to have Ossining represented for such great leadership, and delighted to have your leadership both online and offline and community policing, really highlighted and showcased in this way on a national stage. So congratulations and thank you for representing us so well.
So administrative reports, Village Manager Karen Gatori.
Fourth. Thank you. Good evening. So I'm pleased to announce the appointment of Alberto Fernandez to the Planning Board and Antonio Martinez to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have been very fortunate to get a lot of applications to our land use boards, and we will be appointing other members to these two boards as well as the Historic Preservation Commission within the next week or so. But these two fill empty slots and enable those boards to continue and ensure that they have quorum. So we are very thankful to have them on board. They bring great experience, Alberto, in construction and Antonio in architecture. And we're very happy to have them on board. Continuing on the planning thread, our next comprehensive plan meeting will be on September 10th. We will be focusing on creating subcommittees to inform the process. And these will be subcommittees of groups with various interest and expertise that will inform the process and make sure that we are truly addressing the needs of our community and focusing on business development, housing, environment, arts, and all the things that make our community vibrant, diverse, and wonderful. Last week, Village Engineer Paul Fraioli and I visited with Sandy Galiff, and we were invited to submit an application for a multimodal transportation grant. And we have submitted it for $150,000, and it's for the paving of Broad Avenue. And we had talked about paving Broad Avenue this year with the remainder of our capital fund for paving. But this grant really speaks to the needs on Broad Avenue, which in order to be eligible for the multimodal grant, you really have to increase mobility and create ADA accessibilities. And those are all things that block really lends it to and improvements that are needed. So we decided to push that off till next year so that we can hopefully use this grant money to do it. We were also waiting for Con Ed and other people on that, so that project was a little behind. But in lieu of that project, we will be paving Walden Road by the high school, and that will tie in very nicely with the other work that we've done there in that area, as well as with the high school's new transportation bus path. We'll also probably be able to do repair work on Croton Avenue from damages, and Croton Road rather, Croton Street. That was from the water main break. So again, so on Croton Street, and that's what's in store on paving. Today, the town and village met with Simprocity software, or Simprocity software, and they provide the ability to submit planning and building permit applications online. So our respective building and planning staff were able to ask questions and get more information. And we're doing our due diligence, but we look to move forward jointly on this project and have a decision on how we're going to go within the coming weeks. And we will keep you apprised and hopefully be able to engage both boards, the planning board, zoning board, and the community in a presentation about how this can work once it's implemented. And today we met with Rabbi Dovid of Chabad, Briarcliff, and Ossining, and he came to us with a plan for a Hanukkah event that we're tentatively planning for December 26th. That will be an expansion of the events that have been sponsored by the Chabad recently, which have been really lovely menorah lighting events with latkes and all sorts of delicious treats. So this year it will be an expanded event and with more family oriented, with crafts for children and things like that. So we're really looking forward to that. And that pretty much summarizes.
When does Hanukkah start this year? Is it that late?
I said December. Hanukkah starts on the evening of the 22nd.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I only have it written on. It's popping up on the 23rd, so I assume it starts.
Yeah,
it starts the sunset on the 23rd. Oh,
On the
oh,
22nd.
it starts. On, oh, okay. All right. Well, who knows why Matt
It pops
my
up on the
calendar
23rd, but
calendar automatically
it's-
says the 23rd. But okay. Okay. Good. Thank you. There's a lot of good stuff in there. I'm particularly looking forward to the online forums being a reality.
I got excited.
Often discussed,
It is-
maybe
it is-
truly
it is
happening someday.
It's all happening.
Excellent.
Everybody's happy.
Madam Clerk.
Administrative reports from Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
We're going to defer mine. I have to write something because there's something missing
Oh.
from the agenda.
You got it.
Caught me off guard there, Stuart.
Went out of order.
All right. Let's try this one on for size. All right, so back to school time. Our first thing is going to be about traffic. Lots of talk about traffic around Ossining right now, and that's going to be our main focus over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, people have heard a lot about the conversation with the new driveway at Ossining High School. We posted a video. If you haven't seen that, that's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on Twitter. The new plan is for people to pull in on Walden Road and you come out on M. Wilton. There are separate driveways, or there's one driveway that splits at the top for buses and cars. So far, it's working well. We've had officers posted there in the morning and in the evening. I personally have been down there both mornings. I wrote a couple tickets today for somebody on their cell phone, which is inexcusable in a school zone at drop-off time. We're asking people, the school will not let people drop off their students in the 2 lots on M. Wilton Place, so please don't go there. Likewise, we're asking you not to drop off your students in the middle of the road. This entire project is aimed at keeping students from being in the road, which is will likely reduce our chances of a pedestrian accident. Also, we're asking people to watch your speed. This is a good time to talk about that, not just in the school, but all over town. One of the things that we find is just based on the sheer volume of traffic in our community, people tend to be in a rush and nobody can get where they want to go fast enough. So when they find that open road, people tend to step on it. We're going to be doing a lot of active traffic enforcement. You've been warned. Coming up this weekend, Saturday, we have Ossining Police Department versus Ossining Fire Department softball game that we'll be winning again this year at 4 p.m.
Wow, the trash talking on television.
A couple of
Wow.
firemen in the audience over here. Some sit on both sides of the fence there. Saturday, September 7th, 4 p.m. at Veterans Park. We're going to be raising money there to benefit staff members of the Landmark Diner who were affected when that business lost their property last week in a tragic fire. Tomorrow, my support services staff and I will be traveling to Albany, where the New York State Accreditation Council will be voting on our assessor's recommendation from this summer's inspection here. Every 4 years, we're re-inspected for accreditation purposes from New York State. So tomorrow we will find out if we have passed officially. So we're looking forward to that. Beginning this Friday, the TASK program is back at the Ossining Public Library. We're going to put out flyers for that tomorrow. I just got them before this meeting. Mondays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., the TASK program at Ossining Public Library. That is $40 per participant. And even if you came last month, you probably need to come back because that program, as I learned, takes sometimes more than 1 semester in order to complete because there's a series of tests. But we're encouraging people to come to that. It's a great program. There's an awesome crowd for that last month. Everybody very helpful. So if a high school equivalency diploma is something that you need, come and check us out. September's Hunger Action Month, so throughout the month, watch for programs we'll be partnering with Ossining Union Free School District and Feeding Westchester to move that program forward. And last, just real quick on that Ossining Matters 5K, September 14th, it's a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. There will be some traffic. We'll put some notices out. There'll be a brief closure on Main Street to start the race, and then some light closures on Ann Street, North Malcolm, Van Wyck, Snowden, and Beach Road. Those are periodic closures as runners come across, but we're just going to ask people on that day to keep an eye and drive slowly because we'll be in the middle of the road running. So that's all for tonight. Thank you.
Corporation Council. Good time?
No,
Tap dancing?
I apologize. A little in Yiddish they call it verblunget, but some of us understand that. In tonight's agenda, we have 2 local laws that are being adopted, hopefully by the board. One is proposed local law 4, which deals with the electrical standards. The other is proposed local law 5, which deals with the plumbing standards. I want to thank, as I did before, the folks at the building department and Deputy Corporation Counsel Sonia Tanksley for their input with regard to this. Once the local laws, assuming they are approved by the board tonight, they will get filed with the Secretary of State should become effective within approximately the next 14 to 21 days. If anyone has any questions about what those local laws provide in terms of how they change electrical and plumbing standards in the village, they can contact either the Corporation Council, that would be my office at 941-3554, or the Building Department, which has information with regard to that as well. Next week is a busy week for our land use boards. On Monday, there is a planning board work session. There is also a meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. And on Tuesday night, there is a meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. All agendas and related documents are available on the village's website. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Are there any organization announcements?
Organizational announcements would be if any of your organizations have an event coming up or programs that you want to let the public know about, now's your chance to talk about it for 2 minutes and tell us how great you are. Hey, you all have great organizations, but we'll hear about it another time. Madam Clerk?
Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on any of the resolutions this evening? Okay, moving on to village board resolutions. Approval of minutes, August 21st, 2019. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the August 21st, 2019 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye. Sorry.
Okay. Approval of voucher details, September 4th, 2019. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated September 4th, 2019 in the amount of $589,919.89. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adoption of proposed local law for 2019, a local law amending Chapter 114th Electrical Standards of the Village of Ossining Code. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining has been considering the adoption of proposed local law for 2019 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 114 Electrical Standards of the Village of Ossining Code, and whereas in accordance with New York State law and the Village of Ossining Code, and having provided all requisite notice, the Board of Trustees conducted a public hearing on August 21st, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. at the Byrd South Fagan Police Court Facility, 86-88 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, during which time the public had an opportunity to be heard regarding the proposed local law, and whereas at the conclusion of the public hearing was closed, and whereas the proposed local law has been considered by the Board of Trustees and it has been determined that there are no impediments to proceedings with the adoption of the local law.
We're going to tag team this one. I will read because it does not appear in your agenda, the resolve clause. So let me just do it for you.
Thank you.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that proposed local law 4-2019 is adopted as local law 3-2019, and the village clerk shall file the law with the Secretary of State as required by law. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
So move.
Second.
Comments on the board?
Okay, so Trustee Bazemore? Trustee Quesada?
Aye.
Trustee Levin?
Aye.
Trustee Herrera?
Aye.
Mayor Garrity?
Aye.
Adoption of proposed local law 5/2019, a local law amending Chapter 201 Plumbing of the Village of Ossining Code. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining has been considering the adoption of proposed local law 5/2019 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 201 Plumbing of the Village of Ossining Code, and whereas in accordance with New York State law and the Village of Ossining Code, and having provided all requisite notice, the Board of Trustees conducted a public hearing on August 21st, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. at the Byrd South Fagan Police Court Facility, 86-88 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, during which time the public had an opportunity to be heard regarding the proposed local law, and whereas at the conclusion of the public hearing was closed, and whereas the proposed local law has been considered by the Board of Trustees and it has been determined that there are no impediments to proceedings with the adoption of the local law.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that proposed local law 5-2019 is adopted as local law 4-2019, and the village clerk shall file the local law with the Secretary of State as required by law. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments on the board? I'd just like to comment on, it is a roll call vote, but before we vote, I'd like to comment. Both of these local laws are largely tightening up of language of our village code. Would that be an accurate description?
That would be correct, Mayor.
And while it acknowledges in these resolutions that we, a couple weeks ago, had the public hearing, we also had a number of work sessions where we discussed it more in depth. And my recollection is that one of the more substantive changes is related to the electrical permits, that the requirement now is more specific, that the permit must be taken out before the work is done. It used to be non-specific.
That's accurate, correct.
Okay. Is there anything else that is particularly important to call to the attention of local homeowners and contractors?
There are insurance requirements that are now specified and set forth, which are consistent with the county's requirements for insurance. Also, with regard to the electrical code, we specifically indicate what types of work do not require permits. Before, the village did not have that in there, so we're now more consistent with sister jurisdictions in Westchester that indicate what types of actions do not require the need for a permit.
Thank you. And the full text of the updates can be found on the village website. I know there's always more than one path to find it on the village website. I assume it will be linked in the minutes once those are passed in a couple of weeks.
It can also be obtained on the Corporation Council's page. And you can go simply, right now it would say proposed local law 4 and proposed local law 5. You click on that, you will find it. It will
Right.
ultimately be renumbered.
And it says electrical and it says
Yes.
plumbing on. And that's one of the things I linked on my Monday message, because it is very important that folks have an opportunity to read the local law before we have the public hearing and the vote. So anybody who's interested can check on the village website. If you got my email, then it's very easy to find it. If you didn't get my email, it's still pretty easy to find it by going to the Corporation Council page, and there's a whole section that says local legislation, and it's all the drafts and it's all the ones that have been enacted for this year for 2019. So, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Bazemore? Trustee Quesada?
Aye.
Trustee Levin?
Aye.
Trustee Herrera?
Aye.
Mayor Garrity?
Aye.
Resolution authorizing the village manager to sign a purchase agreement with Firematic Supply Company Incorporated for the purchase of one new Pierce Enforcement 4-door full tilt aluminum cab, aluminum body, single body axle, 1250 GPM pump, mid-mounted pumper for Austining Hose Company Number 1. Resolved that following review by the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized by the Board of Trustees to sign a purchase agreement with Firematic Supply Company Incorporated, 10 Ramsey Road East, Yappanak, New York, 11967 for the purchase of one new Pierce Enforcer 4-door 4-tilt aluminum cab, aluminum body, single axle 1250 GPM pump, mid-mounted pumper for Austining Hose Company Number 1, as described in the proposal and specifications, as well as the terms and conditions of the contract between the Houston Galveston Area Council and Pierce Manufacturing Incorporated, contract FS 12-17 for the purchase price of $693,636.76. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
Aye. I don't know who I'm commenting to, but I'll ask the village manager. So is this all in our budget for this year? Is this,
Yes. This is part of the replacement schedule that was previously budgeted,
and this is the amount it was budgeted for, is that right?
is the amount that was budgeted for, yes.
Just gonna confirm
I will say one of the more uplifting conversations that I've had with one of our chiefs, with our fire chief, and I think it was when we were chatting at the June inspection, is that while we have for many years been on a 20-year replacement schedule for fire apparatus, that the apparatus that we are buying today is anticipated to last for 25 years. So hopefully that means that some future board 25 years from now will say, thank you so much for purchasing this apparatus that lasts 25% longer than it used to. So we have that to look forward to as taxpayers a quarter century. This has been the model for a few years now, but we're not yet seeing the benefit of the 25-year replacement schedule. We're still on the 20-year replacement schedule. So fingers crossed that this all goes according to plan. I doubt that anybody will be looking at this video 25 years from now, but perhaps it's reassuring to those of us who plan to be around and continue to pay taxes for years to come. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Resolution authorizing the village manager to execute such documents as necessary to complete the application for the New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act and/or New York State Intermunicipal Water Infrastructure Grants Program. Whereas by resolution dated September 6, 2018, the Village of Austining Board of Trustees approved the modification of the capital project budget of the new Indian Brook Water Treatment Facility to $38,295,552 as part of a grant submission for the New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act and/or New York State Intermunicipal Water Infrastructure Grants Program. And whereas the project is expected to be competitively bid under New York State statutes in December 2019 after the project drawings and bid specifications are complete, and whereas the village intends to reapply for a grant submission from the New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act and/or New York State Intermunicipal Water Infrastructure Grants Program. Now therefore be it resolved that the village manager is authorized to execute such documents as are necessary to complete the application for the New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act and/or New York State Intermunicipal Water Infrastructure Grants Program, subject to review and approval by the Corporation Council. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? This is a pretty big deal, and we have with us some staff here that may help us understand this project a little better. Village Manager DeTore, do you want to offer any
Well,
general comments?
general comments. This is a very big project, an exciting project, and but to really speak about it in detail, I will invite our village engineer and Water Department, Paul Fraioli and Andy Teese.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hi, Andy.
I went to a seminar that was run by Carlucci, Senator Carlucci, about 2 years ago. And this is when this funding originally came out. And it was a big deal because the governor's office wanted everybody to apply for IMA grants. And this is a perfect opportunity. This is an estimated number to build a filtration plant. But if we're chosen, we could be given up to $10 million out of that $38 million because we serve water to the town and to the village. It seemed like it was optimum. So Hazen and Sawyer has been working on this for the last year and a half. We were on the phone yesterday with the environmental facilities people up in Albany for about an hour, and they say the paperwork is in order. It's ripe, for us to go for. So it's short-sighted not to.
Is there any anticipation on when the decision would be made about the grant?
They really couldn't give that to us. I mean, it could be within 6 months. They did want us to do an ad alternate, which would be MWBE. So it would be minorities, women, business owned businesses. That would be so like if the contractor is chosen for that and they won the actual bid, they would give an ad alternate price of the labor that would be owned by companies like that. So that if we did get the grant, we want to make sure that that's in order so that it doesn't disqualify us. So we're going to actually get a price on what it would be without that designation and then what it would be with it when we go out to bid. It makes the most sense. We don't want to preclude ourselves in the future. I mean, the goal, the health department has it. We should be in our final meeting for this filtration plant with the health department comments, and Hazen and Sawyer has all the rebuttals of the comments within the next month. I'm hoping to get approval by Thanksgiving, and then we want to go out to bid hopefully before the end of the year. I mean, we could go out in January, but we're expecting to go out by the end of the year. It's a great time. The work is slow, so I think we'll have a lot of interest. Pretty much it. Might as well stay up here for the next resolution too.
Thank you for that. What is the construction frame on?
Well, it's
for
about
project?
2.5 years.
Okay.
So like last year we started because there was a season to take the trees down. It had to be done within this bat season and eagle season, and we followed all the DEC regulations, and that's all set. We didn't want to go into construction where we would take trees down and you're not allowed to. So we're ready. The site is ready to be constructed upon. Should be 2.5 years once we start.
Other questions and comments? Thank you for being here.
And the next one I'll wait for.
Madam Clerk.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
DPW authorizing to advertise for bids contracts DPW 19-02 furnish and install tank mixing and aeration equipment in 3 water storage tanks. Resolved that subject to review by the Corporation Council, the village clerk is authorized to advertise for bids for contract DPW 19-02 furnish and install tank mixing and aeration equipment in 3 water storage tanks. Such bids to be returnable to the village clerk. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Well, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I didn't know if you wanted me to explain about it, but
No, but you can stay up for the next one as well. Or you can stick around at least for the next one, right?
I think so. Oh, yeah.
And whatever it's
Water-
doing.
water tank, yeah.
Well, it's just a shuffling of funding sources, I think. But Madam Clerk.
Finance, budget modification Route 9A water main replacement capital project. Whereas by resolution adopted by the Board of Trustees on March 1st, 2017, the board authorized the use of accumulated surplus fund balance in the amount of $156,760 for field surveys and engineering-construction management services for a proposed capital project for replacement of portions of water mains along Route 9A between Stormytown Road and Croton Dam Road, and whereas by resolutions adopted by the Board of Trustees on June 21st, 2017, and September 5th, 2018, the Board authorized the use of accumulated surplus fund balance in an aggregated amount of $1,036,080 for the cost of construction plus contingency for said replacement of portions of water mains along Route 9A between Stormytown Road and Croton Dam Road, thereby bringing the total capital project budget to $1,192,840, with said project to be let subject to competitive bidding statutes under New York State statutes. And whereas, due to projected project cost estimates, and at this time the village's consulting engineers have revised the estimated cost of field surveys, engineering/construction management services, construction plus contingency to $1,307,407 for a net increase to the capital project budget of $114,567. And whereas, in order to meet a grant deadline for the New York State Infrastructure Improvement Act and/or New York State Intermunicipal Water Infrastructure Grants Program, village management recommends the use of accumulated surplus fund balance of the water fund for said additional capital project costs of $114,567 for a revised total capital project cost of $1,307,407. Now therefore be it resolved, the adopted budget of the water fund in 2019 is modified to appropriate accumulated surplus fund balance of $114,567 for the additional capital project costs, thereby bringing the total capital project budget for replacement of portions of water mains along Route 9A between Stormytown Road and Croton Dam Road to $1,307,407 as follows. And be it further resolved that the village manager is authorized to execute such documents as are necessary to complete the application for the New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act and/or New York State Intermunicipal Water Infrastructure Grants Program grant, subject to review and approval by the Corporation Council. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, comments on the board. I'll kick it off because this is actually the first time I'm reading this, and forgive me if we were notified of the update. I don't recall this being on the agenda on Monday, the last time I reviewed the agenda. But that's fine. That's fine. But I just I want to clarify because these are in the town, and so every time we talk about the water fund, it's an opportunity to educate the public on exactly why money gets spent the way that it does and why we're voting on a project that actually is not inside the village. And it harkens back to some of what Andy Teese was talking about earlier, which is that our water system provides water for both the village of Ossining and the unincorporated town of Ossining. And this project is relating to the infrastructure of the pipes itself. And that is under the purview of the water system. The water fund is funded not by property taxes, but by your water bill. But everybody pays their water bill, whether they live in the village or the unincorporated town. That water bill payment gets deposited into the water fund. And so it seems appropriate that we're using water fund surplus to for addressing this additional amount that I guess hadn't been anticipated previously. I also want to clarify, I think it's great that we're applying for up to $10 million in grants for the water treatment facility, which was 2 resolutions ago. This is a different grant application.
It's a different grant application. It's kind of good that we held off on doing this because the first round that came out last year, the answers, we didn't receive the grant, and project was almost fully designed, and we made some modifications. That's why that difference of $100 and something thousand, $114,000 to save some of the piping and to run it a different way. Because we didn't start construction, we're allowed to apply for this grant again. So it's a blessing in disguise. We get it; it would be awesome, but we should go for this too.
Well, we certainly want to have grant money helping to offset the expenses for public infrastructure whenever possible. So fingers crossed that this works out. Anybody else with comments and questions? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Continuing on, is there continuing business of the board?
Yes. So yesterday, in continuation of what I said at the last legislative meeting, which wasn't last week because we were off, but the previous one, after the board and the administration at the village manager's office kind of really agreeing that we're going to work together and to really streamline and have a process for events. As it is ongoing, I made a ask of village manager Dottori to conduct an audit. At that time, I think I was being too ambitious. I said 5 years on camera, but that's like a lot. So I kind of felt that 2 years was enough. And for those that are watching, what the memo, and I'll post the memo later tonight on Facebook and on Patch, but what the memo is asking for is a 2-year look back on all event related applications within all village departments, including the office of our village manager, to really have an analysis of what the response in the village was, who it went to, what they said, what fees or permits or etc. they had to get or lack thereof. And I know that the manager will definitely comment after this, she replied with all the great work that she's already started, and I was pretty impressed with the comprehensive overall view of it, so I was pretty happy with that. But I just want to make very clear that this particular ask is not about us developing a comprehensive event procedure. This is about finally being able to verify the allegations of selective enforcement and discrimination within our event process. So that's my intention for asking for the audit. Regardless of me asking for the audit or not, the village manager was gonna start and look into an overall comprehensive process no matter what. So that's why I asked for it in such a particular way, for us to see why were so many people's experience the past 2 years or even the past year so different compared to each other, compared to each nonprofit or church or group or person, and where did communication and or differential treatment occur, and what those practices and behavior define as when it comes to being equitable, fair, just, and non-discriminatory if applicable. I could have just asked for all the documents and all the emails and all that, which I guess I could offer my time like once a week until we do it. But the goal is to finally, in writing, have a true discussion and analysis and hold ourselves accountable to see where we went wrong the past year. And if people had different experiences when applying for permits, and if others were treated differently, and if the allegations of, selective enforcement or, discrimination can be proven, this is opportunity to say, you know what, they're not valid or they are valid. It's something that I plan on pursuing hardcore. I think it's very important. I'm meeting with a couple of nonprofits and groups next week where I'll invite my manager. But I personally have experienced some questionable behavior in approvals and services from the village as a trustee that I have brought up, and I have emails that were sent to prior village managers. So as a trustee, I'm even unsettled. So that's why instead of me discussing it so general, and as I wait for a comprehensive process, I want to verify what I've been told and what I've seen, and be able to then actually trust the process moving forward. So I just wanted to be very clear on my intention as to why I asked for a 2-year audit, looking into the procedure and process from the very moment a request comes into the village for an event to the actual occurrence of the event and all that happened in between in the process. I don't think it's a hard ask. The majority of the information needed does exist, but it's going to take some time. And because we have a new village manager and some new people, now's the best time to learn from past history and practices to really see how to move forward and not repeat those issues and mistakes that we had. So I just wanted to be very clear on why I wrote a memo, and I look forward to. I think it's a really easy task, and it can be done concurrently as you continue your comprehensive, development of our event process, which I know you're doing, and we'll see soon. But I do separate it because the intention's a little different, at least for me.
Thank you for that. I am not aware of any formal allegations of discrimination based on event processes. So if they exist, I would need to see them. I have no record. I've only started 3 months ago. I do not know of any circumstance where the village was anybody made allegations against the village that they were discriminated against for doing an event. That said, and that would be an important piece of information, because if that's the case, we actually would really want to, we of course would want to look into it. I'm not sure, again, that exists anywhere. I'm certainly not aware of it. That said, we can, it'd be easy to go into the clerk's office and pull up what was done for the past events for 2 years. That's not a particularly big deal. I think what the issue is, though, is that there is as we've changed, well, as the community's grown, as more and more people, organizations, different entities are doing events, there have issues have come up. So one of the biggest issues is we had several events in the past that were done by certain organizations. They were pretty regular annual events. Now we're having more and more events, and we have different kinds of events. So, for example, we've never had a menorah lighting event in the Market Square that involves a heated tent and other things. So that's a new thing. So it's not that there's not a process for that, but there is right now a separate building permit process for that tent and everything else. So right now it's a little convoluted when you try to do it too. Again, we have a history of subsidizing a lot of events almost to the full extent. And that's becoming an issue with certain events as we have more and more events that the board needs to consider. I would say that a conservative estimate is the village probably sponsors events to at least $200,000 a year that we're subsidizing based on our, man hours, overtime, cleanup, as well as materials and things like that we do for trunk or treat, tree lighting, you name it. And those are all really great things that a community should be doing. But our event landscape is rapidly changing, and our current codes don't keep up with it. So a lot of things have been done in the past verbally. Different things have been handled, as far as I can see, either by the manager's office, the rec department, the clerk's office, the building department sometimes involved. So our process hasn't really kept up with the number of events we had. So while we can go through what was done, there probably were inconsistencies. I doubt that they were discriminatory. I think they were just inconsistencies because people are trying to be responsive and facilitate events to the best of their abilities. So going forward, we're doing analysis that Jamie Hoffman and Bill Garrison are spearheading. They've already done a considerable amount of research on how to streamline the process, how to make it easier to do the events, how to make sure that we're treating everybody fairly. And it will involve discussions with stakeholders who do events currently, how we may want to change them going forward, ways we can do events with minimal impact for street closings and affecting existing businesses. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and a lot of really positive things we can do. So certainly during that the course of this, we're looking on past practices. So in the context of a much bigger plan, should something arise that is either an allegation that I'm not aware of, or indicates that somebody was, treated unfairly intentionally, then we will certainly bring that up. However, please keep in mind, there have been enormous change in management staff over the last several years. So again, and a lot of the stuff was verbal. So I'm not sure that will get you the information that you want. But certainly past practices will be a big focus of this, because we do want to go do better going forward.
Thank you. I don't think that I was clear on the difference between my audit request and your continual good work working on a comprehensive event procedure and process. Although they're related, they're not. You can't say they're inconsistencies until they're proved otherwise. So through interviews with applicants, through finding information through the clerk's office or police or DPW or whatever entity was involved, that all that has to be investigated, right? So that's actually part of the.
I do know that there's inconsistencies. I don't need to investigate that.
Well, no. You can't assume whether it's inconsistency or a matter of selective enforcement or a matter of discrimination, whether the report or complaint is in or not yet. You can't assume that.
Someone makes an allegation, we will follow up on it. Right now, there is no allegation, so I'm not going on a fishing expedition to determine who may have felt that they were, if there was no actual allegation.
So, with that said, so as a trustee, and I know that you're the current new sitting village manager, so the past, I don't even know what to call it, the past things, because we don't know what they are yet, inconsistencies or.
For there to be discrimination, somebody would have to make an allegation.
Can you please let me finish? Okay, so I don't trust the process, and I don't trust the discretion currently used in your office when it comes to this process. So I need to know how the sausage is made going forward, but before I can do that, I want to, and I will sit with you and let you know which events in particular, who the organizers are, when they were. I have all this, and I do want to look into all of them. And if they choose with actual findings that they do not want to file a complaint, but we want to apologize, or we want to see how to not make the inconsistency again, or explain to them why they were treated differently when the other person wasn't, whatever, that's what this process does.
Omar, if somebody feels that way, they can come to me. They can tell me. I will certainly talk to them based on the information. The information that you are looking for, most of it was done verbally. There is no written record of any of that. So I will not be able to get that for you.
Okay, so I want to interrupt you because I asked you not to
anything.
interrupt me twice already, and you did it already. So
I'm
so-
sorry I
okay.
interrupted you. I thought you finished speaking.
I was not. So it's coming from me, a sitting trustee, telling you that I don't trust the process and that I don't trust your discretion in this process. Okay. So I just want to see and sit down with you, and I will bring all these applicants, if they agree, hopefully, to discuss and highlight where I saw, to my judgment, or the board, depending if it's a nonprofit, where the issues lie. I know that the majority are going to say yes. It's not a fishing expedition. Just because you are new and we have a board that's moving forward finally on addressing a process for events does not mean that we do not acknowledge and hold ourselves accountable for what was done, if anything wrong was done. And to my knowledge, there has been a lot of questionable behavior done in the event process field that I have no issue, which it looks like I'm going to have to put on paper, line by line, person by person, department by department, to start the process. Not here to argue with you. I just wanted to make the public and you and the board know of my clear intention, and that I don't just take someone's word for it. And I think it's very premature, because I know it's wrong. I know it's wrong for you to say that information does not exist when I know it does. And I think it's also very inappropriate for you to put a dollar figure on something that you haven't even done a presentation on how you came about. Maybe later when your process is done and you've done a full audit on what the village, you brought up our trunk or treat, and you brought up our what's the other event? Those are village-sponsored rec-funded events, totally separate. So that's why I just need you to not throw out any numbers like that without backing them up and not tying this process with this.
Can I,
Sure.
Karen, we certainly want to hear more of your feedback, but any of the other trustees want to weigh in here, and I think we also need to talk about process.
So, my issue is always when someone talks about their allegations. If they're allegations, they need to be made public. You don't accuse people by simply saying, I'm accusing and therefore I want to research. I have never received an email accusing people of discrimination. I have received plenty of emails that thank the community center for bending over backward and for thanking the fire department for bending over backward to bring Santa down the streets and all the stuff that we do to bend over backward. Arguably, you could say that people do a lot of stuff for other people in this community. To say that there are allegations of discrimination without actually mentioning the allegation and who brings it. You know, we live in a democratic environment that says that when you accuse someone, you actually have to face, the accuser has to face the accused. And, you know, maybe it's because we're sitting in a courthouse, but you're throwing stuff like this around. If you have it, present it so that the village can address it. But you're not. And I don't know if it's a fishing expedition or not, but it's like working in a vacuum. And I don't think it's fair to the staff. It's not fair to the people you're accusing, even the past people, because you're not presenting the allegation and who makes them. And that's like what we call gossip and innuendo. And that's, to me, not really an acceptable way of presenting an idea. XYZ organization says that they were discriminated because they're whatever. Okay, so who are they? Let's see the email. Let's see the information. Let's see the data. Let's address the people that did it. Let's hear what they have to say. That's something that a staff person, whether we need to call our corporation counsel in, whether we have to call the village clerk, whether we have to get, I mean, then we even know what happened. So to me, without that, and it's, if you have it, then let's discuss those. What is it? Who's complaining? Who's saying? You know, we can't accuse people, and including our staff, or frankly, anybody, anywhere. Because you know what? Everybody has rights. The people on staff who are listening tonight and are sitting there going, what did I do? And what am I being accused of so blanketly? Also have rights. They also have rights to say, wait a second, are you accusing me of this? So I'm not seeing any allegation. I haven't received them. You didn't email any to us that you have. So I don't even know where to begin, because if I were a village manager, I don't think this is, first of all, an easy ask. I don't know if I would call it a fishing expedition, but I would call it like an expedition that doesn't really explain to me what it is that you would like, what problem you want to solve. If there are 5 organizations that feel that for whatever reason there's, name them, bring them in to the village manager. If you don't trust the village manager, if that's what you're saying, I'm hearing you say that, I don't know if that's what you're saying. You're basically saying that you don't trust the people that we have appointed to the jobs that they are. I don't know what to do with that. I mean, I literally don't know what to say. You don't trust a person who's been appointed to do something, then you don't trust them. It's your prerogative not to trust them. Okay, but again, yet another allegation of something without any sort of proof or data or anything else. So I don't know how useful this exercise is, except to say that you should open your door, which you've offered. There are allegations, they should meet, and if they don't trust the village manager, then, you know, we have a corporation counsel that represents us as well. I don't know what else to say, but I find this really disturbing because it's accusation without information.
Mr. Quesada, did you want to comment on this?
Yes. Karen, I want to thank you and your office that you went in regards to this process. I believe do not have a clear path, get a clear answer for this, but I know you tried to find something that we can base on for events something that's going on within our community here. I'm going to disagree with the Herrera in regards to past. As a sitting trustee for the past 2012, I have not seen organizations that have come in or have reported any of the allegations that he. Now, I know because I've been in a part where I have met with different organizations and worked with them for their scheduling and closing streets, working with our police department, which he has been part of some of those in the past year and the years before that. So I'm not sure, inconsistency in previous administrations, I guess, on second floor. How do we done events? We did, as you know, we don't have something set in writing. But we're looking for your advice on this. I'm looking for your advice on, and for the email that you sent us earlier today. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, staff, on all the work that you guys been together. Actually finalize mission expedition. So,
I would, thank you.
I'd
I'm
like
sorry.
to,
I would like to comment, please. Thank you. It's now a good time. Okay. So I just wanted to clarify because a couple of words were put into my mouth. I said alleged, but it's okay. I really, I would have asked for the audit even if I didn't use the word discrimination, because audits show where it broke down in your process or lack thereof. It shows inconsistencies. It shows who, where, when. Audits are not a bad thing. But that's fine. I will write a memo to our mayor, and I'll submit in writing the events, the names, organizers, and they will have a chance to comment on whether my interpretation of it was correct or not, or and that's fine. We'll do it that way with actual examples and names and dates, and that's okay, and that's fair. So I won't argue that. As far as it being a fishing expedition, that's just politics and nonsense. But I've done audits in government at all levels, through business, through nonprofits. Audits are not bad. I know that they're very rare for the village when it comes to internal processes and departments and for how we use them. I know it's
that's,
lots
that's
of
not
audits.
accurate. We do audits.
no,
We
I
bring in
know,
outside
no,
agents.
no. I mean like desk audits that kind of look into your internal.
We've done it.
We've done
Done them.
audits.
You
We've had
weren't
the county
in
come
staff
in.
at
We've
that
hired
point.
consultants to
You
come in.
know,
We have financial
um,
audits every single year.
Well, I called for a couple of audits in the past through memos, and they were not granted through the office of our state controller. So that's just not true. But I think it's the first time to ask for an audit that really puts the board and department heads kind of the ones being, I don't want to say investigated, but seeing where we have not done as we should have, or where we did have some inconsistencies, or where we could have done better, and put it on paper and really show how. There's actually a couple of firms that could help us with this if you can handle it.
We can handle it.
Okay.
Well, no, the mayor in her email said that you may not be able to, and at your discretion. So that's why I'm bringing it up, because she said it first. So that's all. I think it's important to learn step by step and in detail if they were inconsistencies or not, what they were and why.
Okay. There were definitely inconsistencies.
We all
Just
agree.
our participation has been inconsistent. I've been in this chair for almost, or one of these chairs for almost 7 years. You've been in front of the board for doing events, and I'd be interested in finding out how your experience was different. That would actually be interesting. There are things that we've had public discussions in this room, in Village Hall, about some events. We've changed our policy and our legal process for events over the years, and there have been events where we've had lengthy discussions over what will be how it's going to work, and there have been events where I didn't even know the event was happening, and I learned about it from other people in the community. Like, there is absolutely inconsistency.
Right.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. Has it been done out of some sort of malicious intent or discriminatory motivation? As has been stated many times, if there is some allegation of that nature, then it absolutely should be looked into. But what you have said tonight is a number of contradictory things. For starters, in 2014, the last work session that you attended as a trustee in that August or September, you presented a 20-page recommendation of what the village should do for event planning. And you're now 19 months into this term, and this is the first time that you've brought up this suggestion. So if it's something that you think is a priority, why didn't we discuss it in the last 19 months? Okay, I'm not done. And on the one hand, you say it's really an easy task. And on the other hand, you say it's going to take some time. It is going to take some time. And we are an elected body that directs staff to fulfill big picture goals. Just like we don't tell the engineer how to pave the road, we don't tell the police how to stop traffic, we don't tell the village manager exactly how to fulfill our goal of having a much better system for events. And she is working on that with her staff. I look forward to it being a much better process in 2020. In 2019, we have seen in this room and at Village Hall a number of meetings that it is not a good process, and we all know that, and it's going to be better. I would hope that in preparation for any meetings that our staff is planning to have with local business owners or other stakeholders, people who have held events in the past, that there is significant research done so that when you walk into those meetings, you know if they've paid vendor fees, you know if they filled out one lick of paperwork, you know if they ever provided a certificate of insurance, because that will be quite a vetting process just preparing for those meetings, and that will help inform how to do it better going forward. Whether or not we should do a self-audit on past practices from half a dozen village managers, from 24 different events, and how many tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars we spend picking up trash for every single event that happens, or closing down streets, whether it's for a church or a nonprofit or a village event. I mean, those are all things that should be considered. But right now, we are entering budget season. Last month, we had a lengthy meeting about what are the priorities that we want the village manager to be addressing. And not anywhere on that list did it say, please do a self-audit and tell us about every email that's gone back and forth for the last 2 years about an event. Please do not waste your time doing that. That is not the directive that is being given by the board. Please do a lot of preparation for the meetings that you're going to have so that in 2020, we have an excellent event process and we can welcome events to take place in this community in a manner that makes sense.
I am going to speak now. I take great pride in separating my personal feelings from my professional feelings, and I don't take things personally. I have a pretty thick skin. But Trustee Herrera, I know you probably better and more personally than any other person sitting in this room. And for you to say that you don't trust me is offensive and insulting and hurtful. And just so you know, it bothers me that this has been inconsistent. It bothers me so much that in the middle of everything else that's going on, I'm making sure that that won't happen going forward. So just so you know, I cannot speak to things that happened before I got here. My intention is to make this process as seamless, as fluid, and as fair as possible. I have said that over and over and over again. If you have issues with me personally, you can take it up with me personally.
Anyone else? Right,
Yeah,
comment,
well,
please.
so part of the budget process includes a whole bunch of things, right? One of them we've discussed is looking at parades and all things. We have grown as a municipality in the time I've sat here, and we've grown in the time I've lived in this community for 25 plus years. And going from a small environment to really a trajectory that is significantly like 2 to 3 to 4 times as large with all the good stuff. I mean, I always view these parades and all this stuff as great. It's a great thing to have. I mean, we talk about it here and it's turning into something that's sort of upsetting on the municipality side, but it's actually a great pride of mine when I live in Ossining. So I like to sort of stay on that, in that mode. I would like to get a sense though, strategically, because we talked strategy 2 weeks ago, strategically on an item as you're looking through this, make this more consistent. I did not realize that there were so much objection by small businesses until a couple of weeks ago about having these parades and all of these events, many of which attract people from way outside our zip code, come through this village and what it cost this village. But more so that it is not actually helpful to local business, that in fact, to many of them, it's harmful to them, that they would like it moved to different space. So that is a strategic conversation that I would be interested in hearing more about. Not so interested, really. I know that some of the cities, White Plains has developed an area by putting down those red bricks, and they're an area where during the weekend it's quiet, and Rochelle has a section. Greenberg, they all do something sort of interesting. I don't know how much time you have to look into these ideas. It might be too much time, but I like the idea of strategically thinking about that. So if you could add that into the discussion of going forward, it would be great. There has been back and forth about nonprofits and for-profits. So there are non-for-profits who become an umbrella, but underneath them is a whole bunch of for-profits, many of which are not, again, from, like, say, zip code, because even though it's a village municipality, there's always confusion, village, town, whatever. So let's say Ossining, but I do understand that my lane is the village. I get that. And whether we should discriminate in pricing between for-profit and non-for-profit going forward, I would like an opinion of, I do not have an opinion. I would like a study if possible, and I'd like an understanding going forward, because there are a lot of for-profits that come in, make their money, leave, while our businesses, A, are hurt by the location of all these events, and B, aren't the ones really benefiting. And these other folks sort of come in, sell, leave. There's good and bad to that. But it's something I've learned recently, which I had not thought about before. So I share that with you because in your recommendation, to think strategically, not just from the budget about money, but also what might it look like going forward, or any recommendation you have. I would like to see many parades, events. I know the city has an app where all their events are so that you don't get caught up in the traffic and plan your day and all that. So there's lots of opportunity for us to manage this. Certainly if New York City has been able to, we might be able to learn, but I'm thinking more like, what can we do strategically to continue with this growth, embrace the growth, and manage the pricing fairly for all that are concerned. And so that all that are concerned would also understand what it looks like, that it becomes public information, so that we don't have to argue, with different folks about why this guy has this, but that guy has that. Because frankly, no two are exactly the same, which is a problem not mentioned here, but I think it's obvious to the public. No two parades are the same. No two events are exactly the same. A lot of similarities, but not exactly the same. And so that also creates sort of another axis to think about, not beyond the budget and beyond sort of the policy. So I'd be interested in that if I might add that. To your full plate, but if I might add that to the conversation, that would be helpful. So I'm done.
Okay. So, yes, in 2014, before my departure to Albany, I did submit a pretty lengthy proposal that was based off of about, I think it was three Yonkers, Peekskill, and I don't know what other municipality. And after that presentation and a couple of department heads at that time, 3 years later when I wasn't there until I ran again, during those 3 years where the audit would show we had a lot of questionable inconsistencies, the process still wasn't actually brought up or followed through or revised or brought back. So that clearly was a decision after me that I can't really speak for. As far as why I brought it up now, we know why I brought it up now, due to the very controversial event application that happened a couple weeks ago and how that went about, and how myself and Trustee Bazemore did question. And to clarify, I didn't say I didn't trust you, Manager Dottori. I said I don't trust your discretion in this process. That is what I said. Okay, so I am here as a trustee, and I speak to those who are employed by the village or appointed as professionals. To be clear and on the record, I want to make sure that we have a process that works for everyone, and the audit will show all that was brought up tonight and how we could do better, but also all that went on. And just because it wasn't the same person in the role doesn't make it an excuse for us not to look into it. And we could agree to disagree, and that's okay. I'm not gonna make this personal and politicized as the past couple weeks have, as I see that everything is heading. But I have a duty to verify what I feel are issues that I see with my eyes and I've experienced with myself, and then of course bring in you know any other groups or people that may have experienced the exact same thing. This is not just you know coming from the two people that I spoke to. It's also coming from myself and my experience, and I'd be more than happy, Mayor Garrity, because I think it's a perfect example to speak about my events when I was in business and how that went about, and the policies that the board and village and corp council at that time. More than happy. That could actually be part of the process. We have to move the audit for 5 years to kind of encompass it, but that's part of the process to include everyone and see if everyone has been following the same rules, same processes, and has been enforced the same way. I clearly see that I made some people emotional and upset. Not my intention, but I stand very firm with this ask. I know it's the right thing to do. I'd be more than happy. It's on record, the 20-page PowerPoint that we did in 2014.
We have a copy of it.
Great.
Actually, we're using it.
Great.
So that work, and to be honest, if everything was done right, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So again, be real clear, that is exactly what this exercise is about. And again, if there is any allegation, I don't think we have to say this again. We will absolutely look into it. I don't know what else we can say that has not been said already.
I was just responding, that's all.
So, Trustee Herrera, you said something in your opening remarks that you could do it yourself. You could offer your time to work on this each week.
Yeah, if you want like a couple hours a week, I'll come to the office with you and Jamie.
No, that's not
You
what I'm
have to do it
suggesting.
yourself.
You can do it. The board is not directing the staff to undertake a self-audit. If you want it, then you can make a specific request. You can ask the clerk's office for any fees that you receive. You can ask for any existing documents, just like anybody else could, and then you can evaluate it and do a self-audit. But the board is not directing the staff to do a self-audit. You want to do the work because you're concerned, do the work.
Well, I would then have to learn about, do we usually give directives for every task that staff does, and what differentiates the board approved ones and the non-ones?
The board is a unit, and an individual trustee can ask for things, and you have, and I think the village manager said she's going to take things. I'm not sure you're getting the support of the board to direct the staff to do a back audit. Board, in majority, I think, believes that there are aspects of what you're asking that make great sense, looking at what was done in the past and talking to department heads and all of that at a time when bringing it up when they have to do the budgets, which is the one thing, frankly, the only people that can sign off on that and vote is the 5 people here. And this is the time of the year where they're doing it, is not really a reasonable ask at this point in time. So if you want to do something like any one of us can, sure. But the direction doesn't come from 5 individuals. It comes from a board. What I'm hearing the mayor say is that I don't think the board is giving the directive village manager or the department heads go back in time and look at all the inconsistencies. And one of the reasons is that everyone at this table has agreed with you. Don't necessarily need an audit. Yes, there have been inconsistencies. Audits prove something. We agree there have been inconsistencies. It's the other piece that you keep bringing up about allegations of individuals who have said in X, Y, and Z without proof of that I don't think you have the full support of the board about that and what you're saying without proof and data. Those comments. The comments about inconsistencies, everyone here has said, yes, that is correct. Do an audit, you'll prove what we're all agreeing to already. That doesn't seem to be a great use of time to prove something we're all agreeing with you on. We are all agreeing with you that there have been inconsistencies.
All that you said is correct. I'm a little perplexed about, we usually don't, to my knowledge, authorize every single task that department heads do at a board level. I mean, I just formalize stuff in writing for accountability purposes, which I know is a little new for the village, but in memos, but we don't approve every single task that they do. They do stuff without coming to the board all the time. That's their ability.
I'm not sure
Um,
why you're making that point.
No,
It's
because
like you're counter.
no,
it's
no,
counter
no, no,
to what
no,
you're,
no.
should be
My
saying.
point is that they don't need our approval to look into something. The only difference here is that they're addressing part of it their own way, and they don't want to do what I'm suggesting. So we're we're stepping in as a board because I brought it up for public discussion. That you're just going to say no for them. That it's not a directive.
No, Karen made it pretty clear exactly what she thinks
Yeah,
is a
so-
valuable
so
way to
he-
move forward and what's not.
So here's the thing, when there's an issue,
Her job.
you address the issue. If there's an allegation, like you said, what we'll find is things were inconsistent. That's what we'll find. There's no question that we already know that. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Look at that in any other context is why was it inconsistent? How can we do it better? If you're talking about something very different, where somebody was treated unfairly and unjustly in some way that was more than just we don't really have a great process and not a consistent process, then that's very specific. And that I would, is warrants taking time to look at. But to look for something when you don't know what you're looking for will waste a lot of time and energy. So I'm not, again, you're basically doing everything you asked to do. But again, it's pushing it back so that we're having a discussion about basically agreeing on the same thing. If you want me to look into a specific allegation, if somebody comes forward with an allegation, I will look into it to the best of my ability. I cannot and do not have the time with all the other things that are going on right now over the next 6 months to devote time for looking to things when I don't really know what it is I'm looking for. That's what I'm saying.
Duly noted. So if I give you a typed out list of what I personally, coming from me, myself as a trustee, as allegations or those that can be questioned or investigated.
I think it's good when people speak from themselves. So if it's you and specific,
Yeah.
then yes, we can look into that.
I just would like to, when you do a public audit, not all of them, but the results are public and the process on how so
can
I
make
just
that
want to make
public.
sure that,
No reason why. it can't be.
so that's,
Should be public, actually.
I have no
that's
problem
the
with
only
keeping it.
difference.
And if you want to come in and you have specific events and you want us to look into the process to the best of our ability, we will reconstruct what happened, and it will probably be inconsistent with what happened to somebody else. And we can discuss why, and we can, if you want to call up people who used to be here, I don't know what else you would want to do. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is going forward, we're going to try to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Better than that, I really can't do.
Okay. I think that we've talked enough about this for this evening, and we have a plan for next steps. Is there, Madam Clerk?
Is there any new business of the board?
No, that was
That was-
continuing.
That was
Continuing, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, no new business for the board.
So moving on to visitor recognition. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board?
Please, welcome. No, there's a,
No, no, is
that's
that-
a
Nobody
no,
wants to
thank
What
you.
is
No,
that?
okay. All right. No visitor recognition. So, oh, it's visitor recognition. Ms. Pengel, did you want to speak to the board during visitor recognition? Okay. Then we would like a motion to adjourn into executive session for matters of collective bargaining and personnel related to specific persons.
So move.
Second.
Second? It would be on the personnel. I don't know if we'll get to it tonight.
That's
Mayor
fine.
Uh,
Garrity.
Thanks.
yeah. Oh, yeah, give me 1 second. All in favor of adjourning to executive session?
Aye.
Aye. And before we go, thank you for that reminder, Trustee Herrera. Next Wednesday is September 11th. The village, actually all of Ossining, the village of Ossining, the village of Briarcliff, and the town of Ossining, our first responders have a really special tradition of putting together a program at the waterfront. It begins at 7 o'clock next Wednesday, September 11th, at the waterfront. It's always a very moving ceremony. I encourage you to please join us at 7 o'clock on September 11th. It also means that we will be delaying the start of our village board work session. We have scheduled it to begin at 8 p.m. If you show up eager to watch the Village Board work session in person or tune in on television at 8 o'clock next Wednesday. If we're not there yet, it's because we're still coming up from the event. We're not exactly sure of its end time, but tentatively we anticipate starting at 8 o'clock. And more importantly, I hope that we get to see many folks down at the waterfront at 7 o'clock on September 11th. This meeting is adjourned to executive session.